Thank you for giving me the chance here to share this with y'all. Uh, we're going to do a deep dive into part of my personal family history, a deep dive into the power of the photograph. And I call this presentation, I've named it several names, but one of them is called Chasing Ghost. And it's because of all of the people in the pictures that I'm going to be showing you, they're all dead. And there's no way to ask questions and get clarification and what have you. And I'm going to go ahead here and just all right, make sure everybody is muted. And uh, and I'm going to have you guys ask questions. Just write your questions down. Once I get on a move here, I'll be going through these, fairly fast. And write down your questions, and I'll be happy to clarify things or answer them. And this is a labor of love that I started here 3 months ago or longer. And it's reflections of the Los Prietos Ranger Station and the original Los Padres Hot Shots, as seen through my father's picture album. And the pictures I'm going to share today range from 1948 to 1950. That picture on this leading slide is a picture of my dad. It could have been a self-portrait, could have handed the camera to somebody else. I have no idea, but it was taken right around 1948. It was taken at night, and in order to get, no flash was used, or we'd see it reflected. So Dad obviously set the camera, to capture the light in these old barracks at Los Prietos Ranger Station, and that's why his face is a little blurred. It's to me, this picture, when I saw it, it had a haunting, look to me. And so anyway, we'll continue on. And all right, this project I'm going to share with you guys, is it's a very personal project. It's a labor of love. It has been a time of discovery for me, as far as my dad and the history of the Los Prietos Ranger Station and the history of the Hot Shots and all that. And it's also been an experience for me to truly embrace the power of the photograph. You all know that as a photographer and a teacher of photography, I am just absolutely have a love affair, and I'm passionate about photography and about pictures. And and this project here really reinforced that awe that I have for the photograph. It's allowed me to get to know my dad a little bit more through the portal of his photography. And his photography will kind of range here from 1944 to 1950. All right. Before I start the presentation, I gave the last presentation to the Kiwanis Club of Atascadero, and everybody liked it. The only critique I had was there's people in that group that did not know what a hot shot was. And the other two presentations I did for the U.S. Forest Service. Obviously, they know. So I thought I would learn from my mistake on my last presentation to the Kiwanis and make sure that everybody knows what a U.S. Forest Service hotshot is. Okay, I know, and I sometimes assume that everybody else does, but they don't. Uh, Both these photographs of the modern day hotshots were taken by Kyle Miller. He's an excellent photographer that takes photographs of hotshots, our modern day hotshots. And as far as describing what today's U.S. Forest Service hotshots, and they're also known now, uh, they're interagency hotshot crews, and they go all over the United States, and I believe even out of the United States, there to do what they're so well known for doing. Uh, First of all, if you were to describe what the Hot Shots are, they're an elite team, and they are elite, of wildland firefighters, and they specialize in initial attack. So that first in attack on the fire and fire suppression tactics. They go in rapidly, hike in or flown in, whatever, right to the hot spot of the fire. All right. They're very highly trained, and they are definitely known for their physical fitness, their mental toughness, and their ability to work in very extreme conditions. Hot weather, hot fire, up steep mountains and down mountains and everything else. They're men and women, and they are very, very tough folks. Believe me. Um, they're deployed to the most challenging and dangerous fire incidents, and they play a very critical role in protecting communities and our natural resources, our watershed areas, and what have you. I was surprised to find out as I started to do my research how many hotshots have been killed in the line of duty fighting fires. A lot, and so and though their primary focus is fire suppression, they're also what they called an all risk organization, or their mission is all risk, and that includes even protecting structures, buildings, and even they have been dispatched to disasters. So they are an outstanding professional group of people, and I have nothing more than the utmost respect for them, especially as I've got to be invited to give presentations to them on these pictures and stuff, and truly learn what they do. Amazing. All right, so I wanted to get that out of the way and not make the same mistake I did last time and just assumed everybody knew what a hot shot was. All right, and also, even though you guys know me, we've been together here now for a while. At least a couple of you have known me since I was a kid, a younger guy. But there's a lot of things in my history, that play into this and how I approached it and what have you. So just kind of starting, on the top, going left to right. Uh, I was born and raised in the San Ynez Valley, there in the Buellton area. I went to San Ynez High School, where I went to high school with Karen, and out of high school, I got involved, in the private ambulance service, and got in before there was EMTs or paramedics. Was there when EMTs and paramedics became reality, and rode that wave in. Worked quite a few years on an ambulance. That shot of me in front of that ambulance is back around 1990, I think it was, is when I ended it, and it was there in Solvang. Picture on the top right, I eventually ended up going into the fire service. I worked for a municipal department as a fire apparatus engineer and paramedic, and I eventually went to work at Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant, contracted to be their assistant fire chief, and did that. And then after I worked 10 years there, picture on the bottom left, I taught for 20 years at Allen Hancock College. And I taught initially for most of those 20 years of what I knew, and that was EMS, EMT, all that good stuff. And then I was asked to help out at non-credit ed and teach photography. And that middle picture on the bottom row there was one of my classes at Allen Hancock College. And my last year of employment, I was a full-time photography teacher. And, that's my passion. Last picture on the right, that's my business partner, Tom Way. He is a retired fire captain paramedic, also a former hotshot with the U.S. Forest Service for quite a few years. And we're in business together, and we do emergency preparedness training for schools and businesses and what have you. So that's kind of and I'm sure most of you do, at least some of this, but that's, in a nutshell, that's my history. And that shapes, the way that I approached this project and did my research. This project is in memory of my dad, Vince Messina, born in 1926 and died in 2009. And that picture was in 2005. I will tell you, that's one of the probably rare pictures of he and I together as adults. Uh, our relationship was somewhat of a challenge for both of us, throughout the years. But this project of digitizing these photographs and researching the photographs as much as I could really kind of brought me in a way closer to my dad, and understanding his life, a little more than I did. So I know Leo can identify with this. Um, I ended up, amazingly, I ended up with my dad's photo album of his fire service career. And that would include the Forest Service and also some pictures with Santa Barbara County Fire Department, where he went to in 1951 when he left the Forest Service. So I ended up with those pictures. I will tell you right now, I looked at this photo album as a kid. It's actually in a little newer type, newer meaning within the last 20 years. Originally, all those pictures were held on with those little corner things, we used to put in our albums to hold the pictures in. Then Dad converted over to this. I hate these photo albums. They have destroyed more pictures because the pictures stick. And then people get impatient. They want to take the picture off. They rip the picture, but it is what it is. So I digitize with what's called a copy stand. And you can see it on your right, on the screen right. And it's taking one of my better full frame digital Canon cameras, and it mounts on that vertical rail. And then the camera can go up and down. I have a macro, 100 millimeter macro lens on here, so I can get right in there. So, because these pictures are stuck to the pages, I went ahead and just removed the plastic thing, and then I digitized them as they were in the album. I didn't take them out of the album, for the most part. And I just sent off most of the pictures to Montana, and there's 110 of them. All right, so I digitized over 110 pictures out of my dad's album. All right. Once these were digitized, it opened up a whole new world. I want to encourage everybody in this photography meetup group here, lifelong learner group, to digitize any way you can your old prints. There's so much more sharing wise and whatever, because I'll go back here, once I photographed with a 24 megapixel high-end camera these little prints, I could now not only share them, but I can print them up to poster size, and it's amazing. And for those that, some of those pictures that were, poorly exposed and stuff, I could, adjust some contrast on it, whatever, and improve. I don't do a lot of that kind of work on these pictures. So I want them to remain, true to form, but some of them, were kind of in bad shape. So I could, once digitized, take them into Photoshop and do some minor global adjustments on it. And all right. So once these got digitized, Katie barred the door, a whole new world opened up. All right. I got a hold of the Forest Service and introduced myself and said, I'm Mike Messina. My dad, worked for the Forest Service from 1944, up to 51. and he has pictures of the Los Prietos Ranger Station, and he has pictures of the original Los Padres Hot Shot crew. And they go, oh my gosh, So the first thing is the picture on the left. I was kind enough to be invited there to the Los Prietos Ranger Station and talk to the Los Padres Hot Shot overhead, their captains and superintendent, and share for the first time ever these photographs with them. And then the picture on the in the center. This was fairly recently. I was invited there to speak at the 75th anniversary of the Los Padres Hot Shots. And so I showed best I could. I showed those pictures and gave the story. And then I mentioned my first non-Forest Service invite was to the Kiwanis here just recently. And so far, this now is the fourth presentation that I've given, and I hope to be asked to do more to share this. Where have these pictures now gone that I've done them? Well, I was on the internet and I was doing research, and I found this article, this PDF article on the history there of the Forest Service aviation program. And I started looking, going through this document. It's fairly new. It was published September 2024, and realized that Dad had pictures of the helicopters that they originally experimented with in 1949. So I sent an email to him and said, I've got pictures of helicopters, experimentation. And they wrote back and go, we want your pictures. So now those pictures, Dad's pictures of the helicopters, and you'll see them in a little bit, they're now archived with the Department of Aviation, or here with the Forest Service. So that's one place they've gone. Sandy, I see your hand up.
The picture before that one, Michael, is that in Washington State? Do you know? Or would that be down in I'm looking at the mountain behind it, wondering if it's Mount Rainier. Who knows? There's a ton of them up here.
It's very possible, very possible. It sure isn't in our forest here,
No.
But yeah, and it looks like,
That's stunning.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you can get this publication, it's up on the internet, it's free. And take a look at it, and it's beautifully done. And now maybe the next time that they publish it, they might include some of my dad's helicopter pictures,
that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. So the Hot Shots, there's the U.S. Hot Shot Association. They've been around since 2016, as it says. This is their webpage. You can become a member. You can donate to it. And it is just a group of retired hotshot superintendents. Superintendent is like a chief.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so I was led to them, here by a retired hotshot superintendent. And it was fantastic because he introduced me by email. And I just sent them a whole bunch of pictures that they are going to archive into their historical pictures.
Oh, wonderful.
All right. And okay. Let me get back to here. All right. The big one. I was introduced. I got an introduction there by a guy named Jim Cook, retired Forest Service superintendent. He lives up in Boise, Idaho. Great guy. And Jim got me an introduction to the president and vice president here of the National Museum of Forest Service History there in Missoula, Montana. And I called back there, told them what I had. They go, we want your pictures. Sent them 110 pictures. They had to be cataloged, numbered correctly. There was, I had rules there, stipulations on how to send them. Have descriptions for any of them I could. They are now being archived as I talk into the museum. Now, with this museum, this picture, this is not built yet. Through funding, donations, spring of next year, this is going to have been built. And it is a phenomenal conservation legacy center. It's their museum. And they will have displays and pictures and old equipment. And, they'll probably have docents in there to lead you around and answer questions. So Dad's pictures are going to this museum, and are there as far as our archives as we talk. All right. Beginnings. Everything's got to start somewhere. All right. Where did my dad start with the Forest Service? Well, you got to start with Los Prietos Ranger Station before you can talk about Los Prietos anything. And in my research, and based off my dad's pictures, I was able to find out how the Los Prietos Ranger Station, which is located off Highway 154, there going towards Santa Barbara, if you off Paradise Road, if you have not been there. And Dwight Murphy was a very renowned person in general. He rubbed elbows with the President of the United States. He rubbed elbows with the governors. And his claim to fame is he bred and raised world-renowned Palomino horses. Look at that beautiful horse. His horses, people bought his horses worldwide. And he had leased, and I believe his dad had started it, had leased a ranch or land from the U.S. government right there in the San Ynez riverbed area. And it was part of a Spanish land grant. So you can't own federal land, but you can lease it. All right. So his rancho was Rancho Los Prietos y Najalegua. And that was part of a Spanish land grant ranch, as I remember. And so Dwight Murphy was then building in 1939 a big 7,000 acre ranch for his Palomino horses and needed the money. As wealthy as he was, he needed the money there to build this ranch that he was working on. So he gave up his special use permit and gave it back to the government, but he had improvements. He had a barn, a livestock barn. He had corrals. He had a building called the Lodge, which had 10 rooms in it, 5 cottages. Again, barns, corrals. So when he sold that, the improvements, to the Forest Service, that became Los Prietos Ranger Station. So, in April of 1939, the sale was made. And then the district ranger moved there, his station, his office, to the new LP site. That was Ranger Erwin Lyda that you'll see in one of the pictures. So I had no idea, nor do a lot of the Forest Service people have no idea how Los Prietos Ranger Station came to be. And I was able to find that out. All right. Now we know there's Los Prietos Ranger Station. My dad grew up in Los Angeles as a city boy, and he dreamt of being a cowboy, and he dreamt of riding horses. And he would come up in the summers growing up from Los Angeles with his older sisters to the Circle Barbie Guest Ranch, located, just on the, east of Refugio Beach. All right. And the dude ranches, guest ranches, were very popular at the time. And so Dad, as a youngster, came with his sisters, and he learned to ride horses. And then I think he was about 16, on a summer vacation from school. He was hired by Mrs. Florence Brown, who owned and operated the Circle Barbie Guest Ranch, and hired him. So he was a ranch hand, there at the guest ranch. Well, those skills, learning to ride a horse, paid off. Because with World War II in full swing, the Forest Service could not find adult men, to fill their ranks. So they started hiring, as did other fire departments, they started hiring teenagers, all right, there to fill the job of what would have been filled by older adult men. And that letter I just acquired from my brother not that long ago, written when Dad had just been drafted into the Army and was getting ready to be shipped off. And he wrote this letter to Mrs. Florence Brown, who owned that ranch. And kind of hard to read my dad's writing, but he said, by any chance, could you send me the picture of when I was a horse patrolman for the Forest Service? Send me a copy of it. It was taken by a guy named Tony Pico. That's all in the letter. I didn't think that picture existed. And my brother found it recently in some stuff that he got from my dad after Dad died. So that is a picture of my 17-year-old dad. You can see his little Forest Service badge on there at the Circle Bar B Gas Ranch while on patrol for the Forest Service. And I didn't think that picture existed, and so I got it and digitized it. And so then this thing called the war got in there. And so he had to register for the draft there August 1944. And remember, he's working for the Forest Service. He was 17, eventually 18. And this is the copy. I just got this from my brother and my dad's draft card. And so the next thing he knew, he had to go in the Army. So November 29th, 1944, Dad had to give up his beloved horse patrol job and go into the United States Army. But look at on this personnel action form that I got in the scrapbook. He was considered a fire suppression guard C, whatever that was. Look what he was paid. He was paid $1,620 a year, or $4.50 a day. And those were his wages. And so this was the form he had to be filled out when he had to go into active duty. Now, this is all going to play in to the story and to the photographs. Trust me. All right. So he reported to duty November 29th, 1944. Went through boot camp up north of me here, Camp Roberts. All right. And interesting, they were heading out there to engage the Japanese when 2 bombs were dropped in Japan, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So they were heading out by ship to go there and have combat with the Japanese. And Japanese gave up, surrendered. And so they redirected the boat, and guess where Dad went? He went to Japan to occupy it. So what does that have to do with his album? Well, he bought a camera. All right. He bought what was called a Proud 2. That's actually a real Japanese-made camera. I looked it up. I own the camera now. I have the camera, and it's pretty beat up. And that camera was made in the 1930s up to the late 1940s in Japan. So that was Dad's camera. And all of the pictures I'm going to show you were taken with that camera for the most part. All right. And so he returned back to his old job, being released from the Army in 1948. He got a raise. He now was making $2,394 a year. All right. And part of this personnel action form here is his work schedule was Monday through Friday. The hot shots still do that unless they're on a fire. His meals cost him 65 cents per meal with a cook and 50 cents a meal without a cook. And he had to pay $1 per pay period to stay in the barracks. All right. So that was what he came back to. All right. So when he came back and got his horse patrol job back, within a year, he was given bad news that they were discontinuing the horse patrol, my dad's beloved job. They said, however, Vince, if you want to remain employed, we're starting this thing called Hot Shots. And we'd like you to be second in command, be the foreman. Dad turned the job down initially because he had no desire to be a supervisor. All right. But I guess someone must have convinced him, so he took the job and he assisted the Los Padres Hot Shot, their first superintendent, a man by the name of Ezra Braden. All right. I've also been able to get facts and research from Dad's handwritten notes, okay, that my brother, again, gifted me. And out of those notes, these are the key points. The Los Padres Hot Shots started, Dad was there, he would know, 1949. There's been debate on the year. Dad was there, it says 1949. They were the second hot shot crew formed for the U.S. Forest Service. They consisted of 26 crew members, plus 2 cooks. And they were initially only to be used right around the Los Prietos area. But that changed quick, and they eventually served all the Los Padres forest, as well as off forest. They had loose to no guidelines, no rules. They figured out things as they went, what would work and what didn't work. They had no uniforms, caps, or t-shirts. The overhead, as a foreman, my dad was considered overhead. They wore a khaki shirt, Levi's, and a Forest Service badge, and any type of headgear was okay. Cowboy hats, baseball caps, didn't matter. All right. So now we're going to dive in to the pictures. So these are the first 2 years of the beginning of the Los Padres Hot Shots, and 1949, 1950. All right. What made the Forest Service very happy, not only did I have, thanks to my dad, pictures of the original Los Padres Hot Shots, we had their names. Dad wrote on the back of pictures. And the Forest Service, like any other agency during that time, did not keep records, good records at all. These guys would be hired, come and go. So Dad wrote on the back of that picture, you can see it on the right, who these people were. Right? And that's amazing to not only get the picture, but the museum in Montana is so excited that they've got the names to document. All right. This picture here was taken on one of the early fires that the newly formed Los Padres Hot Shots were dispatched to. This was the Haskell Canyon fire. All right. And, that's up there by Cascade. And this fire here was a horrendous fire, big fire. And that tanker truck right there had been overrun by fire. If you look at the front of it, the nose of it, it's dark. And they actually had some firefighters that were burned, injured on this fire. So that's why the hot shot crew is posing, next to this tanker, is because of what happened to it and in the process. And, I'll get my little pointer here. If I can find it. There it is. That's my dad right there. All right. And Karen, I know that you probably knew Porky Moreno. There's somewhere along the line that's Porky there. He eventually became a superintendent down through the years. And again, Dad has the names. All right. This picture is a little bit more blurred. Same truck, roughly the same crew. But this time, the guy that probably took this picture here turned the camera over to somebody else, and now he's in the picture. And that person right there is Ben Dalen, and that is Karen's dad. All right. And so he wasn't in the first picture. And I noticed Dad would hand him the camera on pictures, and have Ben take the picture. So it's just a little different poses and stuff. But I wanted to put this one in because it's got Karen's dad in it, All right. This again is the first year of their existence, and this fire was the Queen Bee fire, and that was in San Luis Obispo County. Right up here where I live, and uh, you can see the hot shots. I believe they just came offline because they look tired. They're all sitting down. This gentleman right here is Ezra Braden. He was the first superintendent. He's the guy that my dad assisted there, as far as commanding the hot shots. And there's people there I grew up knowing. This is John Romero, his parents were my godparents, so there's a lot of connection there. All right. Same fire, just a little different picture. These guys look a little more perkier now, I'm going to guess, after they got some rest. And there's Ezra Braden again. There's Dad right there. And this guy here was one of the cooks for the hot shot. Turned out I grew up knowing him, Ed Paluch. He was a chef down in Santa Barbara eventually. And so early pictures. This is at Los Prietos, right by the lodge. They're a ranger station. This is the entire crew as it was in 1950. And again, Dad wrote all the names down. And let's see here if I can find them. Let's see. All right. So at the top, okay, on the bottom, it's a little blurry, but I wanted to, so bottom left to right. All right. Karen's dad is in there. And I say it's hard to see everybody. There's Bud Doan, he's in there. And so anyway, this was at Los Prietos Ranger Station, 1950. That's how the hot shots looked at the time. All right. And here's a little smaller group picture of the original hot shots. I grew up knowing Rex Kerr quite well. He was actually my sponsor for my confirmation as a kid. And that's at Los Prietos. I have no idea where this is. Probably on a fire that looks burned out in the back. And Karen's dad is right there. It's Ben Dalen right there. And then Bud Doan is right there. Good friends there of Karen's family as she grew up. Well, they transport them a little differently now. This is the original crew truck. So they would haul the hot shots in the back of this stake side truck out to the fires. And this was the first, this Dodge stake side. And so definitely the fire apparatus has changed. The trucks, fire engines, through the years. This is at Los Prietos. This building right here is where Karen's Aunt Carol lived. And you'll see a little more about her. And in the back, remember when Dwight Murphy sold the improvements? It included a livestock barn. Well, that's the barn right back here in the background. And this is where they stored the fire engines, the fire apparatus. This is what their vehicles looked like back then. Dad told me that as they were starting out and experimenting, they would use World War II era equipment to see if it was applicable to fighting fires. So up to this time, helicopters were not used. They hadn't really perfected that yet. And Dad's got, these are only 4 of them, but Dad's got I think about 8 pictures of the experimentation at Los Prietos of helicopters and how they could be used for firefighting. So this is all when it started. All right. Not everything, however, that they experimented with, they kept. Dad told me there was this all-terrain vehicle, military, and he thought it was called the Mongoose. But he was wrong in that. It wasn't called a Mongoose. And in his pictures, there is that vehicle that on the fire here in San Luis, Queen Bee Fire. And turned out it wasn't a Mongoose. It was called the Weasel. And Dad was kind of close. And it was a military used during World War II, towards the end of World War II. Had rubber tracks, if I remember right, too. But anyway, it was all terrain. It would climb up anything, but it was slow, and Dad said that it just didn't work out. So they used it on some fires. The Forest Service used it throughout the Forest Service areas a little bit, but eventually you won't find them anymore. And now they have much different all-terrain vehicles. One of the things that a person's needs to discover when looking at the history of the Forest Service and looking at the history in particular of Los Prietos Ranger Station, unlike now, everything's mechanized. Horses and mules were a vital part of the Forest Service. And so many of the Forest Service employees at Los Prietos were horsemen. They were cowboys. They were mule packers. That was a big part of the Forest Service. And so Dad captured that there in his pictures. And when I was a kid and Dad was telling me stories, he referred to with much respect a gentleman by the name of Vernon Pendergast. And Vern, or Penn as he went by, Pendergast, was the chief mule packer at Los Prietos for many years. Vern Pendergast was also Karen's grandfather. All right, and so there's quite a history of the Pendergast family up at the Paradise area. They're being a part of this history and of this culture. But if you look at this sampling of pictures on this opening slide, it's amazing how much horses and mules played in what they did. Right. This 1950, you're going to see some more pictures of this Adobe. That's my dad. This is how they dressed when they went back to the backcountry to patrol it and stuff. They carried 6 guns on their hip, cowboy hats, chaps, whole different culture. All right. This picture here, courtesy of Karen's Aunt Carol. There, her stepfather was Vern Pendergast. And she sent me that picture because I didn't have any, and I wanted to mention him in these presentations because he played a major part of the Los Prietos Ranger Station. And this barn, that's that barn I told you about, that livestock barn in the background. And here Karen's granddad is leading out, some pack mules. And so anyway, thank you, Carol, for sharing that because I wanted to include that. All right. This picture, as a former firefighter and paramedic, I've rescued a fair share of people from the backcountry, been a part of rescues. And one of the things that is used for rescue is what's called a Stokes litter, a wire basket litter. Actually goes back quite a few years by a doctor, but last name is Stokes, and who invented it. But it's a wire stretcher where you can put an injured person and then haul them out of the backcountry or off road. Anyway, when I saw this picture, my mouth just dropped open. This mule, I believe this one was named Ruby. That's our best guess on it. This is George Frame. He's one of the packers. Undoubtedly worked with Karen's granddad. But look at this setup. Isn't that amazing? They had, this harness system, and Karen's Aunt Carol explained that they kept this harness assembly on a pulley, I think it was, system suspended, and the mule would back under it and they would lower it. And I actually have an article where probably the same mule and this setup rescued a firefighter in the mountains above Santa Barbara, who had fractured his pelvis. Now I'm sure it was painful to get packed out of there, but there was no other alternative at the time. And so anyway, these kind of pictures. So there is where the fire engines were in the background. This is at Los Prietos, and that barn and stuff is back there. Yeah, this is a kick. They were always involved in the parade at the fiesta every year. And the way that they hauled the mules is they put them in a stake side truck. You can see their heads right there. And they would just put them in the back of a stake side and take them into Santa Barbara, for the fiesta parade. And so, so this is the Fiesta Parade, 1949. Jack Dillingham, a longtime employee at Los Prietos. Everett Marshall, the same. Great guys. And here they are riding in the parade. All right, and flying the colors. All right, guard stations. What the heck is a guard station? Glad you asked. All right, a guard station, a Forest Service guard station, is a building that's designed usually for seasonal use. It allows the Forest Service personnel to be able to be stationed there to manage and protect the national forest, usually during the summer months, during the warmer months. The guard stations traditionally were situated in remote areas, and often they were far from the ranger stations, and they would help facilitate work in the backcountry. And their design and construction, as you'll see in a little bit, of these structures reflected an era, a specific era of the United States Forest Service, and gives you a glimpse in how the U.S. Forest Service employees lived and worked in the past. All right. This is the Happy Hollow Guard Station, now gone. So you will not find it. People can camp there, Happy Hollow Campground, but the guard station is now history. I don't think it burned down. It might have. Maybe knocked down. A lot of them burned down. All right. This is the Figueroa Guard Station there in 1950. I believe the guard station itself is gone. There's a ranger station up there, I know, but this is the guard station. This is the Malducci Guard Station, now gone. That was in the mountains there, and so the crew members from Los Prietos, they would get pack mules and horses and go up to these guard stations and stay, a handful of days and do their duties. This is a picture here. Again, my brother gave me at the Santa Cruz Guard Station in 1950. And the Santa Cruz Guard Station remains to this day. Now, this wasn't exactly a guard station. This was, in later years owned by the Nichols family. It is, east on the other side of the freeway, east of Gaviota Beach. Gaviota Peak, can be seen. That may be it right there. But it was called the Squat. It was built in the 1800s by a Spanish guy and out of adobe. And they call it the Squat. A lot of people don't know why they called it the Squat. It's called the Squat because nobody lived there year round. They squatted there. So in the 40s and 50s, the Forest Service took it over, and they would have their pack mules and their crew members from Los Prietos go back and spend a handful of days. And it is now gone. The roof caved in during weather. The rains got in there, destroyed the adobe, and it's now history. All right. But look at these pictures. They could be taken back, in the old West or something, So look at a hitching post there that they've got their livestock hitched up to. And that's a picture of my dad at the Squat. All right. Fire camps, fires, other activities. All right. This is what fire camp looks a little different now, fire camps. But this is on the Driscoll Fire in San Luis County, 1948. All right. Fire camps are very different now. All right. This is that Haskell Canyon fire where those firefighters were burned and that tanker got overrun by the fire. And look at their lack of protective equipment. They're just wearing baseball caps and raising his coat to shield him from the fire blowing up there in front of them. Right? Picture of my dad at that same fire doing what's called hot spotting. as a kid, I was intrigued at my dad's ability. They called it a lady shovel, it was a small shovel. And Dad could take a shovel of dirt and hit anything with it, anything. So they use shovels there to, pick up hot spots. Before the chainsaws became a reality, the Forest Service had to cut down trees with a two-man bow saw that was aptly nicknamed the Misery Whip, because it was misery to cut down a tree, man, with that bow saw, you know. But we got a picture there. These were two brothers that worked out Los Prietos. Right? Hot Shots training on Snyder Ridge. When I showed this initially to the Hot Shot crew at Los Prietos, I go, where's Snyder Ridge? And they all burst out laughing. They go right out the window. To this day, this is where they train their new hot shots, and they're on, is Snyder Ridge. It's very steep. It's right by the ranger station, so they can do their training, upkeep training, initial training there. So that's funny. All right, we're almost done. One of the things that was pointed out to me by a retired hotshot superintendent, Jim Cook, who lives up in Boise, Idaho, he said, Los Prietos in particular was a very tight community. People, lived, grew up, whatever, at this little ranger station. And Jim told me of all the ranger stations, Los Prietos had a reputation for being a very tight-knit community. And so these pictures, I think these are the end of it here, show that. All right, well, there's Jim Wakefield raising the flag. These are all names I heard growing up. Raising the flag there at LP, there, probably the morning, I guess. Jewel Mansfield was the office manager there for Los Prietos for like 30 years, a long time. And she was the wife to Stubby Mansfield. You've seen his pictures. And really nice lady, beautiful lady. And so that's Los Prietos office, ranger station office back then. And this is just a picture, it just intrigues me of families there, people that work there, their wives, their kids, whatever. And this is a typical scene back then of everyone just hanging out and socializing. Isn't that amazing? This picture here is definitely one of my feel-good pictures. I found out, there through Karen's aunt that the Fish and Game people, when they had an orphan fawn, maybe the doe got hit by a car, whatever, and they knew with all the kids and the women there and stuff, they would bring the fawns over to Los Prietos, so they would nurse them and keep them alive. And this picture here definitely shows that. I will point out to people, this lady right here is Lucille Pendergast. She would go on to marry Ben Dalen, and this is Karen's mom right there. All right, that's Karen's aunt, Carol, not the same Carol I was referring to, obscured, and her name was Flo Florence, and anyway, and that's Jewel Mansfield right there. So to me, that's a feel-good picture. I love pictures like that. Right? And one thing they did a lot of at Los Prietos in this community was have barbecues and picnics and get-togethers. And this is just a picture there of that. That is Iva, nickname of Penny Pendergast. That is Karen's grandmother right there. And, the wife too, Vernon Pendergast, the chief mule packer I showed you earlier. And she passed away not all that long after, this picture was taken, not too many years afterwards. And then Karen's grandfather remarried, and that's where her Aunt Carol came into the picture. And another feel-good picture. Remember on that one slide where I showed you that Dwight Murphy sold the improvements of the land, the leased land, the lodge. That's the lodge right in the background, and it came with a swimming pool. So Los Prietos Ranger Station had a swimming pool. All right, and again, that's Jewel Mansfield who ran the office. That's her daughter, and that is Karen's mom and Karen's aunt right there at the poolside. All right. This gives you a little better idea of what the pool looked like. It's a big pool, giant pool, that Dwight Murphy had built, And again, that's the lodge, the 10-room lodge. They use that for training and meetings and what have you. And I'm sure Karen's mom's in there somewhere, swimming, and her aunt. And when I went to visit Los Prietos to give the presentation, the first presentation, I'd not been to Los Prietos since I was in high school. So it was great to come back. And one of the things that, I ask is the lodge still there? No, lodge is long gone. Is the swimming pool still there? Well, kind of. And so before we left for home, we got a tour of where this picture was taken. The lodge is gone. This is the swimming pool as it is. Kind of sad, all the happy days. And it gets very hot back there. All the hot summer days that people swam in that pool. And now it's in disrepair and kind of sad. All right. So I wanted to give a shout out to Karen's Aunt Carol. All right. And to Karen, they were kind enough to meet up with me in Atascadero when I first started this project and help fill in some of the gaps. Mark Linane, who I'm pictured with here at their 75th anniversary recently, Hot Shots. Mark is a retired superintendent of the Hot Shots, very well known, very well respected, and he held that position the longest. I believe it's I'm just going to guess 1973 to 1999 as superintendent of the Hot Shots. Held that position the longest. And so, Mark is now 80 years old, and I went up to his house a while back and interviewed him, and so learned a lot, from him. This is my last slide in closing. I remember as a kid, my dad telling me, my father once told me of his days with the first Los Padres Hot Shots that we were all writing the book at the time. We just didn't know it. And how true the statement was, Dad. And I thank him and all the others, past and present, for the work that they do as Hot Shots, protecting us, protecting our land, and for continuing to write the book.